With that, this paper right here is the current water situation for where we are at. Bottom left-hand corner right here is Wickiup Reservoir. This same time last year, we were at 55,000 acre feet. Right now, we are currently at 50,000 acre feet. Part of that, the reason why we're behind is because during this irrigation season, we released additional 5,000 acre feet out of Crane Prairie. And so we kind of started off the our filling season 5,000 in the hole. So that's part of the reason for that. And also, obviously, the other part is it's been considerably dry. If you look right above that, you see Crane Prairie right here. Last year was about 42,000 acre feet. Right now we're about 40,000 acre feet. So we are getting close to filling that up and getting caught back up. Over here on this teacup here, look at Prineville Reservoir. We're at 26,000 acre feet. Last year at this time we're at 45,000 acre feet. Big discrepancy there. We keep a close eye on Prineville because we have what they call first fill rights for the Prineville Reservoir. Once it gets above 80,000 acre feet, we have 10,000 acre foot allotment that we can purchase, and we pump that out of the Crooked River. And so it's really critical for us to see Prineville Reservoir get up above 80,000 acre feet. The Haystack Reservoir pretty much topped off, ready to go. Ochoco Reservoir, our friends over in Prineville Irrigation District, they're looking pretty slim on water. Right in the middle here, it says Dino. That is a river gauge called Venom Falls. Right now it's 353 CFS. Last year at this time it was 508. So nothing has changed coming out of the reservoir. That discrepancy of about 150 roughly CFS, that's live flow. It's just not there in the riverway. Before I left for vacation, I had I sat in on a presentation by a USDA climatologist, and the prediction they gave for the winter wasn't good. It was kind of more of the same, dry. Even though we are in a La Nina, it's still going to take multiple years of wet weather to get out of that. As you know, they had that atmospheric river up in BC and northern Washington that hit. Now they've got another one down in California, praying for one to hit us next time around. Anyone have any questions on the water report? Yes. We don't access any water out of Lake Billy Chinook right now, and so we don't really keep track of that. The question was, why is Lake Billy Chinook not on the teacup diagram? Any other questions on the water report? Yes, sir. So the question was, considering the fact that Haystack is pretty full, during the early release, are we going to be able to have enough capacity to be able to capture that? And that kind of segues right into my next topic here. I want to talk about is the 2022 operations. Gary does a really good job managing water. He doesn't have a crystal ball. We don't know what next year is going to look like. You know, we're looking at all the indicators from historical indicators and current indicators. And one of our concerns right now is we've seen that there's a lot of wheat going in. And we're concerned as an irrigation district about being able to meet the demand early on. As you know, one of the HCP requirements is we have to ramp up slowly by a certain date, and we have to maintain certain targets, as you will, as we ramp up through the irrigation season. And so Haystack is topped off, looking good. So we've got roughly, depending on what the demand is, anywhere from a week to 10 days worth of water in Haystack, not counting any supplemental water that might be coming in. If we get hammered early on with a demand that we can't maintain through releases out of Wickiup, then there is a possibility that we're going to have to reinstitute the cap. I know it's not popular. That's the reason why I mentioned it a month ago, and kind of the update letter is one of the tools on the table right now is the order cap. We're going to try to change it and modify it. We don't know if it's going to happen. We don't know if it's not going to happen. It really just depends on what kind of demand we get, what kind of spring we get, what kind of winter we get, you know, the flows, the light flow in the Deschutes River, also the wiki up level as well. We will have a possible order cap due to high demand in the spring, and there's also a possible order cap due to low reservoir level / HCP requirements. One of the HCP requirements that we're going to have to stick real close to, and all of our partners are going to be paying close attention to, is we have to maintain 12 to 1300 CFS at Benham Falls. That's at Beno on that map there. It's from off the top of my head, it's June 15th through September 15th. We have to maintain a flow of 12 to 1300 CFS. And dropping below that means we're not meeting that target, which means we're in violation of the HCP, which is something we don't want to do. So one of the decisions that's going to have to be made early on is, okay, how much water do we have in Wickiup? What's the live flow in the Deschutes River and other tributaries? And how do we have to parcel that up in order to make it to September 15th? That's something we have to do. We have to make that target of September 15th regardless. This year, it snuck up on us. We didn't quite make it there, but next year, we have to make it. The question was, is that the minimum flow of 1200 to 1300 CFS? That is the minimum flow, correct? That maintains a certain water level for the frogs while they're developing, and then once they're fully developed and have their legs, we start ramping down for the storage season, and the frogs can migrate out of the marshes and wading pools and stuff like that. That's the primary reason for that target. So the question was, what happens if we don't have enough water to meet that goal? Then if we don't have enough water, we don't have enough water. We'll just have to see what it is when we get there. So,
yeah. Last year we didn't have enough, but they estimated how much we could supply. So they gave us a target that was lower than the 1200, and we met that.
So what Marty was saying is we had that target, and that was 1,130 CFS coming out of Wickiup is the flow that we had to maintain coming out of Wickiup, and that's why we had to, in emergency, put the order cap on. We had we reduced the allotment and then put the order cap on because we couldn't change that 1,130 CFS coming out of Wickiup. There's a possibility that could be the same, that we'll have a certain number coming out of Wickiup. Don't know what that is, and we might have to stick with that and then supplement around that. One good thing is that COID is currently piping their Pilot Butte Canal, a portion of it. And once they finish with that portion, I think it's 8.7 miles, if memory serves me correct, that water savings from that, North Unit will get additional 30 CFS of water from COID, so that'll help. So the question was, when will they be scheduled to finish? And the answer is basically right up. So last I saw, construction was going remarkably well, and they were about 3 weeks ago. I was at the site, and they have well over a mile of pipe in. And I just saw 2 trucks today with more pipe going in, so they're getting after it. The question is, will COID change the way they operate their system? So part of the construction project this year that COID is doing is they're also installing a 200 CFS spill onto the North Unit main canal, just above our Crooked River flume. So right now they have a spill, they can spill, 30 CFS? So right now they can spill 30. They're putting in a new spill, they can spill up to 200 CFS. So that additional 30 will go directly into our system just above the pumps. And that's a good thing because from Bend, our headworks in Bend to where we get it, our loss is 60%, well, 40%, 50%. So by them putting it in right above the pumps there, it's a lot more efficient. We get more bang for our buck.
Were you asking about COID and their efficiency?
No, their delivery efficiency.
Yeah, what they're hoping to do is eventually the entire system will be piped, and it'll be a pressurized system. And when that happens, they'll become much more efficient. And the way that they'll be able to turn on and turn off. Now
there's multiple agreements out there. Some of them are, this one in particular, yes, that will be made up counting towards our winter releases going forward. There are some other programs that we're working with, water exchange programs, just like that, where that might not be the case, that we would be beneficiary of water that's conserved on farm would go directly to North Unit patrons. The question was how much water is COID saving? The answer to that question, I don't know. That would be a question for COID's management, and all I know is the agreement was you would get the savings of 30 CFS.
It was all engineered. All right, Yas, was that you?
Yeah.
It was all engineered, and 30 CFS was an estimate. There's a possibility, the estimates were supposedly conservative, so there's a possibility that it'll be more than the 30 CFS, but any water that's conserved goes directly to North Unit. So it could be more, it could be right at the 30, it's doubtful it'll be less. We're not using the conserved water and not putting anything back, it's an exchange. The conserved water that we're conserving with the piping and COID is being replaced with live flow out of Wickiup in the wintertime. So it's a one-for-one exchange. They're going to get that 30 CFS that's conserved during the summer, during the irrigation season, will be released in the wintertime out of Wickiup for the frog. And so it's a one-for-one exchange. It actually doesn't put us in the hole. It's a net gain. And it gets really, really complicated. Sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to take over. It gets really, really complicated. Josh talked about the spill there at what we call the Lone Pine spill, which is there at the flume. If it comes out of Wickiup in the summertime, we have a less than a 50% delivery rate. If it's measured at the Lone Pine spill, our delivery rate will be 75%. So it'll actually be a net gain for us. But we do have to give it back. The plus is that this will be the first year that they do it. So we get it this year before we have to put it back in the winter flows. Well, it's for the frog. The frog has to have the water in the winter, and it's what we agreed to. The thing of it is, as well as this, what we're exchanging for the water that we're releasing in the winter, is the water we're releasing in the winter is stored water. It's North Unit stored water. The water we're receiving is live flow water from COID. It has the second earliest priority date. So even in the drought year, we will receive that water even when Wickiup doesn't fill. So it's a better water source as well. So right now we are spilling 107 CFS. So 100 CFS is due to the HCP, and the other is in-stream contracted water. The question was how much flow we're releasing from Wickiup right now. The question was, does U.S. Fish and Wildlife have the intention of using the adaptive management of the HCP? And to answer your questions, we had a meeting with her today, and we are in negotiations. We are in the process of working that out. I think that decision is going to be made in January at our next meeting. But we are in the process of putting together different numbers for water. If we reduce by X amount of CFS, what kind of water savings that'll be, and we'll be presenting that to her as early as next week, and that decision will be made in January.
Josh, I got a question here from Barry Dinkle. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Is the water that we are exchanging in addition to the 100 CFS we're releasing right now?
So the question from Barry Dinkle was, is the water we are releasing in addition to the 100, so that would be the 130? So the answer to that question is yes. In 7 years, when we have to bump up our releases to 300 CFS, it won't be any additional. It'll be part of that 300 CFS. So the water we will be repaying will be a part of that 300. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's another adaptive management question. And I think those are the considerations that are going to be part of the decision-making process is, will this be a net gain for the frog as well? And I think from their perspective, their perspective is frog first. So the question is when COID finishes piping their Pilot Butte Canal, what will be the total savings? And to answer that question, correct me if I'm wrong, Marty, Gary, I believe it's 220 CFS. I believe it's between 220 and 250 is what would that total amount be. And I don't have a projected date on when they're going to be finished. I know right now they're working on the next phases of their project. They've got some environmental impact studies they have to do and different things they have to check off before they can continue piping. So the question was, when COID finishes all their piping projects, what will be the savings? So right now, just on the Pilot Butte Canal, in excess of 250 CFS. The question was, considered the fact that domestic wells might be drying up once the canals are piped. I'm sure those questions have been asked. As you know, in Jefferson County, there's not a lot of domestic wells. Up there in the Bend area, there's, I think, quite a bit more. I'm sure it's been asked, but it's not a big sticking point for us right now. Especially since the first 12 miles of our main canal are already lined. Essentially, we're already piped. So the question was, can we access biological opinions from North Unit's biologist? And you are correct, Marty Vaughn is our biologist. And to answer your question, all the biops and all the information is in the 800-page HCP, Habitat Conservation Plan. That report will be out, I believe, by the end of the year. He is in the process of putting all that together, and we should have our hands on that soon. When we do have that, we'll let you guys know.
A question from the Casad family. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. When is NUID focusing piping our own canals? If we lose 50% from Bend to Haystack, that is the quickest gain of water.
Okay, it's a good question. The question was, what is NUID doing about piping its own system? So right now we are currently in the final stages of our watershed plan and our environmental assessment. We should have the bow on it early in the springtime, where it'll go out for comments, public comments, and then should be finished up and buttoned up by hopefully next summer. We should have notice to proceed. I'm hoping by towards the end of next year. We've already sourced, I believe it's up to $24.5 million of funding for piping the 34 lateral, so it'd be 31, 32, 33, and 34, and then the entire 43 lateral. And so that work would be commencing, I think realistically, I don't think it would happen next year, but I think it would realistically, at the timetables that's been given to me, and it would be 23. So when we shut down fall of 23, we would begin significant piping projects on the southern side of the district. I knew you were going to ask that. And the problem is I don't know off the top of my head. So the question was, how much water are we going to save? And unfortunately, I don't have the exact number for what the total savings it will be. So the pipeline would start at the main canal, where we'd have a head gate and a screen to screen out any debris. Sorry, the question was, how are we going to deliver the water? Would they be on flow meters? So yeah, we'd have a screen with a head gate at our main canal, and these would be closed systems, meaning there won't be water going out the end of the pipe, and so there would be a constant static head in that pipe, and each delivery would have its own mag meter. So a mag meter, it's there's no moving parts to them. So basically, you turn it on, there's a magnetic field that measures the flow of water. So they're going to be the water savings that we would be. So when you pipe the system, you're not going to have any carry water, and you're not going to be losing anything to seepage or evaporation. So that water savings of potentially up to 30 CFS, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, is going to be going right back into the system. This particular deal that we're working out with this funding here is this funding it all stay on district. There wouldn't be any exchange or anything like that going back in the river. The savings we get from this piping projects would go right back into the question was, do we have a target date on COID's completion of their pipeline? I do not know. Right now, I know that their phase one of their 8.7 miles will be complete this spring, and then I don't know how fast they can get their environmental assessment and other things checked off before they can continue piping. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service launched a HCP info website. It's called Flowing to the Future. We've linked it onto our NUID website under Oregon Spotted Frog. And then if you got one of these teacup diagrams here on the very bottom, there's the website address. So that gives current up-to-date information on HCP. The question was, is there any discrepancies between our biologist and U.S. Fish and Wildlife biologist? Our biologist is out in the field quite often, and he's checking and making sure that the data, and he's working with their biologist as well together, making sure that everything is above board, that we're fulfilling the requirements of the HCP. Now the question was, is there any light at the end of the tunnel as far as getting out of the HCP? As you know, Richard, it's a 30-year plan. We're sticking to that plan right now. If the biologists on both our biologists and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife biologists say it's a miracle and we're like Pharaoh being overrun by frogs, then perhaps something would be changed. But right now, we're just sticking with the plan, and if that comes up, great. So the question was, there any indication as the status of the frog, whether increasing or decreasing? And Tom, I don't know the answer to that question.
Pretty early in the process.
It is, yeah. We've just started this year, and so this would be the first year to get that data. You want to try that one?
It's a good question for Bridget Moran, because I'm not sure that there was any, because it's a multi-species HCP that we have to meet all the demands.
All right, I need to get moving on here. I'd like to move over to the Lake Valley Chinook update. So right now, so for those who don't know, North Irrigation District hired the Ferguson Group. They're a lobbyist out of DC. They've been absolutely a home run in helping us progress the project forward, meeting with a lot of the key power players in DC in the Bureau of Reclamation for getting this project moved forward. Right now, the project is ranked as top 1, top 2 projects, and our first step that we're working on right now is getting the funding for the feasibility study, and then right after that, starting the environmental impact statement for that project. So a lot of questions out there. People have been asking me, how long is it going to take? Questions I don't know. If we get federal funding, there's a NEPA process that we have to follow, and part of that is a feasibility study, environmental impact statement, and some of these things you have to go through to get federal funding. Then you all want to donate $400 million, we'll get this thing going. We could skip that process, but yeah, right. 2 years for the environmental impact statement. What's it going to cost?
To start it, he said.
To start it. So we've got grants out right now. We've applied for with the Bureau of Reclamation for about $5 million to get the feasibility study started. And in addition to that, and I'm going to kind of hit this on the next topic here, but some of the emergency drought relief funding. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the emergency drought relief funding here a little bit, but $1 million for drought resiliency work in Jefferson County delivered through OWEB. That'll be part of the money as well. So we're going to be pulling it from a couple of different sources. It's a big process. It's a big proposal. It's a big lift. I mean, it's a lot of, number one, it's a lot of water. We got to lift 400 CFS, 1,000 feet. And we need a couple miles of pipe. So if it's a big project, there's a lot of different dynamics in there and different possibilities as far as pump back systems and stuff like that, and some hydro generation that we're looking at, and then we're also looking at powering it. So there's a lot of details that need to be worked out on that project. But as far as I'll answer your question in a minute. As far as the viability of the project, to date, we've hit 0 brick walls as far as no, you can't do this project. It's a great benefit for the biology. It's a great benefit for farmers. It's a great benefit for Lake Valley Chinook health.
Well, the only feasibility studies that we've done for reservoirs is the Mono Reservoir that would have been east of us, and it would hold 70,000 acre feet. But there's a natural gas pipeline that runs through it and a power line, and so we've kind of shelved that. And we've done a feasibility study of raising Haystack Reservoir to increase the capacity there.
And so the question was the tribe's 200 CFS water right that NUID would potentially be leasing. So the way the water situation works for the Lake Valley Chinook project is right now NUID has a 200 CFS water right on the Crooked River. In addition to that, any water that we release in the wintertime flows, you would be able to pick up anytime we wanted to during the summertime. In addition to that would be the potential of leasing the 200 CFS from the tribes. So that's the order. We've got the 200 already in the Crooked River, get the wintertime flows, and then if we need it, the 200 CFS from the tribes. The question is, can we do this project in phases? So we haven't even started the engineering, but some of our initial concept, I think it is possible to do it in phases. So you could maybe begin with 200 CFS and do one pipe, and then later add pumps to that system. So I think depending on how we design it, and that might be a little bit better for funding anyway, as far as sourcing funding, doing smaller pieces. But at the end of the day, we still need, it's either going to be 2 6-foot diameter pipes or a 11-foot pipe coming out of the canyon. And that's going to be the biggest cost to that. So we've got 2 different locations we're looking at. One of them's down by the marina. The other is upstream, right around the corner from the Opal Springs pumping plant right now. One that's closer to Opal Springs is our preferred location, but we still have to work out the details on that. The benefit of that particular location is once we got it up out of the canyon, it's a short jaunt to our 37 lateral, and from there we already have an easement going all the way back to our main canal. Whereas down by the marina, we'd have to cross a county road and then a lot more landowners and a lot more pipe as well that we have to deal with. So obviously the preferred location would be closer up. So the question right now was, can we recover all of the water we've released in the wintertime flows? So, so what my council has said to me is, yes, we will be able to recover that. However, the whole point of the feasibility study is to see if this project's feasible and to make sure that we can dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's before we take the next step and do the environmental statement. So far, yes. We've reached out to questions, what does PGE think about this project? And unfortunately, I wish Mike was here, but because he's been in direct contact with them, but so far it's been a thumbs up. And they were, Mike mentioned to me that there was actually talk about them supplying a letter of support. The question was, is the water that comes out of Opal Springs in excess of 1,200 to 1,400 CFS, who has water rights to that? Richard, to answer your question, I don't know. I can't answer that question. There's a lot of benefits to this project. As you know, the Crooked River watershed has, tribes are concerned about the pollutants and the high nitrogen levels that are coming down into Lake Billy Chinook. One of the benefits that having the pumps right down there is that we'll be happy to take that extra nitrogen and put it on farm, I suppose. But we have that 10,000 acre feet of water storage in Prineville Reservoir that we'll be able to release at pretty much any time that we need it or the biology needs it. We can pick that water up out of Lake Billy Chinook when we need it. Correct. So the question was, are we going to get rid of the other pump station? So the answer is yes. So we would be removing our existing Crooked River pumping plant, and then it would be completely replaced with a whole new system, which would free up the entire Crooked River from all the way up to Bowman Reservoir, which is good for the biology and good for steelhead. And
why did the Bureau of Reclamation agree to pay the power bill on the 9 pumps that were put in the Columbia River for that new project up there? Would they step up to the plate and pay for the power on this project?
So the question is, there's a term out there called Project Power, and basically that's where the federal government comes in and subsidizes pumping costs for irrigation districts. There was a new pumping plant that was put in by Hermiston Irrigation District that was subsidized by the federal government, and we've had talks with regional management for Bureau of Reclamation, and Project Power is a possibility. Of course, we're going to apply for it. There's a lot of boxes that have to be checked in order to get it, but that's definitely one of the options we're looking at.
From the Casad family again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Besides the cost share of $400+ million for construction, what will the additional costs of maintenance and power bill be for the pump at LBC? How would that manifest on the patrons? What would the percentage increase be to the annual bill, etc.?
So the question was, aside from the initial construction cost, what is going to be the yearly maintenance and power bill? So right now it's projected $400 million. There's estimates in there. We think we can get the construction cost down around $250 million, just simply by moving the location because it's a lot less pipe and stuff like that. We're looking at different construction methods, maybe boring holes down and other things like that. But right now the estimate is $3 to $6 million for power cost a year, and then whatever the maintenance would be. Maintenance on a system like that would be pretty minor on the onset, just changing fluids and stuff like that. But unfortunately, you're not going to have an exact number on that, just because we don't know if there's going to be any subsidized power or any help from any other sources or anything like that. But right now, according to the white papers we've had done, that's kind of where it's looking. I can't tell you what it's gonna do to the assessment because we just don't have all the information. 400 CFS. So the question was, what would be the pump capacity? Right now, we're gonna try to design it for 400 CFS. So you are correct. So if you're releasing 300 CFS out of Wickiup, in addition to the 200 CFS, and our max is 400 CFS.
No, it's an exchange. Any water that we release in the wintertime is an exchange for that live flow water that we're talking about COIDs doing the conservation project. So we still get all of that in live flow. And then what we would be pumping during the summertime would be some of those winter releases as well. So it actually is a net gain. We don't want to pump out of the lake if we don't have to. It's more expensive water. So we'll try to use as much water as we can in the upper basin, but especially in the case of drought and stuff, we'll have access to that, so we'll be much more drought resilient.
And just to be clear on the project, we will still maintain our diversion and Bend. We will still need to be bringing water from Bend because the pumps won't be able to service the entire district. What is the average demand? I mean, it depends on whether we got 2 foot allotment or 1 foot allotment, or, I mean, Gary could answer that question. He's been doing it forever. Our max diversion is our max canal capacity is 1100 CFS. In Gary's tenure here, the most he's ran is just under 1,000. So you see our average, last year's average was 250 CFS. You know, on a normal year, what, 450, 500?
Diverted?
That's diverted.
Okay.
So the question was the loss factor. And so the less water you run, the more that you lose. So yes, that is correct. Yes. However, if I have 400 CFS that's going basically a half mile in above Haystack, going directly on Haystack, and our loss is 0. And so the compensation, it'll be a lot better, more bang for your buck for the pumping plant. And the amount of water that we would have to bring from Bend to supply, the 30% of the district above, depending on where we put the water in, it might be a moot point. And another thing to consider too is with COID's 200 CFS spill, that's right above our current pumps right now. And so if they're spilling contracted water on us, that loss is going to be negligible as well. So there's a lot of what ifs. And we don't really know how everything's going to play out, but right now it's a very good, viable project, and we're certainly working hard for it, Joanna.
Where are you gonna get that out of the water?
Well, it's through conservation on North Unit, conservation on COI, Tumalo, Arnold, all of the other irrigation districts are doing the same, and all the water is being exchanged for wintertime flows.
So one of the missing pieces to the puzzle here is Lone Pine Irrigation District. They're starting a piping plant. They can go ahead and do this here, So they're going to be piping their entire system, which I don't know the exact number of savings. I want to say it's around the 40 CFS mark. Swally is currently doing piping projects, Three Sisters. So a lot of other irrigation districts, Arnold, are currently piping. All of those savings will benefit North Unit. And so the overall plan is through conservation. And then bear in mind too, there is the adaptive management portion of it. And so the releases might not be as high as what they're saying. So the question is, if conservation projects don't come through, what are we going to do? There are clauses that give us a little bit of leverage to work with in the HCP that if certain things out of our control happen and we can't meet targets, that we've got a little bit of leverage and to be able to work with within certain parameters. Our attorney David would be able to explain it better than I could, and this is one of the things that I plan on talking about for next year in a podcast, going through the HCP and answering a lot of these questions in detail. So the question was, what was the process of forming the HCP? What was that like? How did we arrive at the certain numbers that we came at? And to answer your question, those are topics that I'm going to be hitting on in the podcasting going forward. As far as bringing our attorneys in and answering those specific kind of questions, I don't think that's really on the table or a wise use of district funds at this point, but I can answer a lot of those questions in podcasts.
Yeah, no, I think that that's if we have enough interest and people really want to do that, I think that would be really important, because a lot of these questions that Josh is getting tonight, we knew the answers at the time, but we don't know them today. We'd have to go back and look them up. So having our attorneys here, having Marty Vaughn here, having Bridget Moran here would probably be really useful. I would be happy to, sorry? Yeah, no, I think that that's something that we've had it here during the farm fair before. If we actually have farm fair this year, it might be the ideal time to do it.
And those are things that we can do.
We could do that too. I mean, they're usually pretty accommodating if that's what everybody wants to do. Happy to have them.
The whole point of getting together here was to try to be a little more transparent and answer questions. I'll get back to you, Scott, about this town hall. I want to do more of these going forward. And I think we can certainly work it out to where we can get, maybe Marty or David here to answer specific questions about the HCP. So putting it in perspective, Scott.
It's great, we're gonna go somewhere else. Well, the only thing that I'll caution you about the way you're doing the math is you have to remember that when you say we're giving away a full reservoir, we can hold 200,000. But the inflows are usually quite a bit better during the year. We're in a drought. I believe in 13 years, it's 4 to 500, depending on the conservation. The other thing that Josh talked about that a lot of people don't realize, there's adaptive management. That's what U.S. Fish and Wildlife. What our attorneys negotiated was what we call offering. If we can't get the funding to do the conservation, we don't have to release the water. So if the funding goes away, dries up, I don't know who asked the question about what happens when things go broke. We don't have to. If we get sued and this, for instance, in Bend, there's been a lot of lawsuits over piping canals. If we were sued tomorrow about a piping project in Bend even, and we couldn't complete that project and conserve that water, we would be, HCP would be extended out.
Okay, got time for one more question about Lake Chinook. Anything else? And so the question was, has inflation been worked into the cost of the entire project? When those initial numbers came out of the 400 million, no. There's some good news. So hope everyone saw the email that went out about the emergency drought relief legislative package. You guys seen that? So I had about 50 copies there on the table. For those of you that didn't get it in your email, and I was on vacation, and Mike worked on this one to burn in the midnight oil and make this thing happen. But I'm going to pass it off to Marty. But the gist of it is, who doesn't know anything about this? So everyone knows that North Unit asked for 40 million of emergency relief. Well, it's 30, right? 30. We originally asked for 30 million, and so everyone knows that, right? Okay, so it's been kind of bouncing around the governor's office, and they finally voted on it late last week, and well, actually, that's 2 days ago. And it's been appropriated. And so Klamath Falls got a big chunk, and Jefferson County got a big chunk, and Marty was part of that process, and have him go through and talk about exactly how it's been, kind of parceled out and broken down. Now, we don't have any money. We don't know how we're going to get any money or how it's going to be distributed or anything like that. So please don't ask that kind of question. We don't know. As soon as we do know, you'll be the first to find out. I can promise you that.
I don't know what I can really add. North Unit, you can see how it's broken down there. 9.7 million comes directly to North Unit. That's not going to go out to patrons in the form of checks, but it will be, the money will be North Unit money to credit to your accounts that you can use for water. Probably what's going to happen is that they'll be credited to last year's water bill, and then you'll use it on this year's water bill. The water bills have already gone out, but it's just because we didn't get the news until just recently. A lot of the other money that's been allocated strictly for North Unit will be sent through the Soil and Water Conservation District or OWEB, because those are the two financial agencies that do that on a regular basis, and they understand how it works. They're still working on all of the details and what the requirements will be, whether it's going to be for soil conservation, whether it's going to be for fallowed ground, for cover crops. We don't know all of the details yet, and they'll work that out. But everybody will have to do a written application. Other than that, we only found out about this the first part of the week, so it's really all new to us. But it's when we asked for 30 million, we knew we probably wouldn't get the 30 million, but we're pretty happy with what we did get, strictly here for North Unit. No, and I understand that, but this was for drought relief of 2021, and so it's important that it gets used up in case we're in the drought next year. This is the way that we're looking at it and thinking about it. That'll actually benefit you. If you had 1,000 acres in 21, that's how many acres you'll get credited. And if you only have 800, you'll actually have more money for next year. Does that make sense? That's the way that we felt that it would be the fairest, rather than, you know, somebody going out and leasing a whole bunch of ground, because it'll be in your account. And so when it comes time to pay your bill, you can access all or any of that money to pay this year's bill. One thing that I wanted to do to kind of close the meeting out was to thank all of the people that that help us receive this money from the state. It wasn't by any means a small thing to do, and it was the reason it happened was because there was virtually everybody in North Unit and Jefferson County that worked hard for this. I'm just going to read what I wrote down. Many individuals contributed to passage of the special session legislation that will bring over 17 million of disaster assistance to farmers and ranchers in Jefferson County. We can't thank everybody individually, but there are key individuals and organizations that should be recognized. First and foremost, our State Representative Daniel Bonham and our State Senator Lynn Finley. They were both instrumental in prioritizing the needs of North Unit and Jefferson County, and their help was significant and essential. Next, I think that we should recognize the Oregon State Farm Bureau. They lobbied hard for disaster assistance throughout the state and provided support for those of us locally to advocate for ourselves, especially VP of Government Affairs, Mary Ann Cooper. Also, Jefferson County Farm Bureau organized with North Unit and local leaders several tours, advocacy meetings, letter writing campaigns, and Jefferson County Farm Bureau has organized 2 of the most subscribed and effective voter voice and letter writing campaigns for farming and ranching in all of Oregon. The one thing that I think that I would suggest, recommend, hopefully, that everybody consider what Farm Bureau did, and it only costs $125 to be a member, and all of that money goes towards their staff and lobbying, and they were very, very instrumental, I will say, in helping us reach this goal. Also, the Oregon Water Resource Congress Executive Director April Snell was helpful. The Oregon Department of Agriculture Director Alexis Taylor. Director Taylor has made the effort to visit and tour North Unit multiple times in recent years and has become a sympathetic and important advocate. Additionally, we have built strong and valuable relationships with ODA staff and the Governor Brown's natural resource staff, who helped shape the final package of the disaster assistance. Also, our local leaders, commissioners, and city council, and most importantly, Kelly Simmelink. Kelly Simmelink was involved at the very beginning and worked very hard to help bring this all together. All of our local businesses who took the time also to write letters and publicly support their farmer and rancher customers. Also, all of the individuals who wrote letters, showed up to meetings, and helped elected officials in Salem understand our plight and see the value in supporting the future of our farming community, especially the efforts of Gary Harris, Kevin Richards, Evan Thomas, Sue Vanek, Mickey Killingsworth, but there's many, many others. All of these individual companies, public officials, and organizations in our community have earned our gratitude. So please go out of your way to thank them and show your support in any way you can. In the end, we made a strong case, and state leaders listened and agreed that the future of irrigated agriculture in North Unit and Jefferson County is worth supporting. It was a large collective effort of so many individuals that made our case heard. That same broad, positive, and collaborative approach is helping make major investments, such as the Lake Billy Chinook project, a realistic and feasible possibility. Please understand that if we want to continue to make progress and keep the support of public officials and other stakeholders, we must continue to stand together, speak with one voice, showing a willingness to compromise and stick to the commitments we have made to conserve water and help the entire basin as we work to become more drought resilient. The only other one that I'd like to thank is Mike Britton. He's not here tonight. He was the one that had the foresight that the minute the funding was announced, that he went to work on it right away and was really instrumental in spearheading the effort.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions that we can answer?
Now, to answer the question, or to repeat the question, how soon will we know? I couldn't give you an answer. We don't have the money today, and we don't know how fast it's going to come out. As soon as it gets out, we'll let everybody know. It will be credited to your account, but North Unit, they specifically said they do not want North Unit writing checks. So the money will not leave North Unit. It was to keep North Unit viable, but it'll be your money. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so folks, before you leave here, just want to thank you all for taking the time out of your evening to come to this event. I appreciate it. There will be more like it as we move into the future. My goal is to, as soon as I've got some viable information, pass it on. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to working the podcast angle, working with other multimedia platforms for those that are interested. And, I'm typically available. My number's, on available. If you guys need to get a hold of me, text me, call me, or any of our good staff, we're here to serve you. So we appreciate you all. And ready?
Yeah, really quick. Everybody got me thinking about meeting with Marty Vaughn and Dave Filippi, our attorney and our biologist. And I guess I'd like a show of hands. Would it be better to do it at the farm fair, or would it be better to do it in a setting just like this, where it was just patrons like this? Okay. And so I guess we will discuss it, and we'll put out some type of an announcement, and probably what Scotty suggested, that if we can get the questions in advance, that'll give them a chance to prepare so that they're not caught off guard, and so that they can do a good job answering the questions comprehensively.
Anything else? Yes. Okay, I'd like to thank North Unit staff for their hard work this year, for all the changes that we went through to do our best to get water to you guys, and our staff that aren't here right now, that work behind the scenes, preparing all this information. Our staff works hard for you guys, just so you know. We're proud to serve. So, thank you for your time.